Dobar dan, dobrodošli. Hello, welcome to the talk here today. My name is Xavier. I run the business development at Broadpeak, and I'm based in the UK. And today I want to talk about quality of experience, right? I want to tell you why quality of experience is important and how some of the OTT giants are basically making sure they can deliver high quality streams to the users. We'll look at some of the tools. We'll look at how it's done. But before, maybe I'll tell you a few words about Broadpeak. Here we go. Broadpeak in a nutshell. It's a tech company based in France. We talk about empowering video delivery, right, to deliver content with a compelling experience. And we work basically with both content providers, so people who have the content, OTT streamers who want to deliver a good experience, and also with the network operators, right? So we do play in both worlds. And we talk about the compelling experience. Why? Because that's very important for the end user, right? There is an emotional link between the customer consuming the content and the content being watched. And I think this is something that sometimes we don't necessarily pay enough attention to. The fact that if you're watching football, if you get a notification on your phone before you see the action on the TV, you're breaking this link, right? You don't have this compelling experience, you're spoiling the experience, right? So this is important for us. And I think if you're like me, right, if you sometimes wonder when to stop streaming, right? If you binge watch maybe a series, you're in the middle of an interesting season, and you're trying to stop, you realize that, yes, because the experience is so easy, it's so smooth, it's very easy to consume the content, sometimes you don't know when to stop, right? So the compelling experience, I think, is really important in this industry. So going back to us, maybe Broadpeak, so tech company based in France, about 100 customers worldwide. We are a CDN technology vendor, so we provide the technology to deliver video. We've seen a lot of growth lately because of OTT streaming and what's happening in the market. And I put a couple of logos here just so you know who we're working with. Big network providers, the Orange, the Deutsche Telekom Group, Vion, Cetin as well, being relevant for the region. And then OTT providers as well. We work with the likes of Disney, Astro, HBO, and it's all about basically mixing both worlds. So, let's talk a little bit about the quality of experience, right? We ran a survey last year with Digital TV Europe, where we asked the industry a bunch of questions. You may actually have responded to those questions. Maybe this survey reached you and you responded to the question. And one of the questions was, what quality of experience do viewers expect from a streaming service? So, simple question, right? This is what we saw coming back, right? 43% of the people were telling us that they expect the experience to be as good as broadcast. So, okay, good starting point, right? 43% expect the experience to be as good as broadcast. What was surprising in this survey is that more than 50% expect the experience to be higher than broadcast, right? Or even the highest in the industry. And I think this is worth remembering that broadcast is a very solid experience already, right? Broadcast doesn't buffer. Broadcast is always available. It doesn't change in bitrate. It's not late, right? There's no latency in broadcast. So it is a good benchmark to start, comparing yourself against, right? I think we also had 5% of people saying that it could be lower, but that's a little irrelevant here. What I want to say with the expectations here, they continue to increase, right? If I look at myself, I am a Formula One fan, right? So I subscribe to the OTT streaming service, F1 TV, if you know it. And it is interesting because F1 TV basically gives more, better experience than what it used to be on broadcast. You have the time shift available, so you're never going to miss the beginning of the race anymore. You can always go back and watch the beginning of the race. You have multiple angles available, so if you have a favorite driver, you can follow the stream from your favorite driver to see what's happening on the track, and you can consume multiple streams at the same time. And I think that's an interesting one, right? Being able to have your main screen with what's happening basically most of the actions, and then maybe another screen with what's happening in the pit lane or your favorite driver or even the data channel, right? They have this ability to track cars across the track. What I'm trying to say here is, we have seen basically the expectations rising, and OTT and streamings have enabled more delivery, more engaging experiences. So yeah, what I want to say is, we see more demand for streaming, obviously, more expectations, and expectations are going to continue to rise. Doing broadcast quality is not going to be enough anymore. What else? This was another question we mentioned in the survey about measuring the quality of experience. We asked people what is important when it comes to quality of experience. What came out is basically rebuffering is the enemy, right? No one wants to see their stream stopped, freezing, rebuffering. If it happens once or twice, you may leave the program. If it happens all the time, you very likely will leave the service. That will lead to abandonment, churn, people leaving your service. So rebuffering is pretty bad, and then it's followed by fast start, right? Being able to put something on screen quickly is very important for the consumers. Following this, we had an interesting one here, which is the ability to hide or at least limit the impact of changing the quality of the video, right? So when you do streaming, the quality can go up and down, and those changes are seen very often as bad quality. If you drop from the highest quality to the lowest quality, that's when your users are going to feel they're not getting the right experience. So here there are a number of tricks. Maybe I'll share one we've noticed when talking to Netflix. It's all about adjusting your ABR ladder, right? So the different qualities you have available. We know Netflix does that on a per title, even sometimes per sequence within the movie. And if you look at the ladders, they're very close to each other, sometimes only a few hundred kilobits per second. What does it mean? It means when you change quality on Netflix, sometimes you won't notice it. And I think that's an interesting little trick that some of the OTTs are using to hide what the streaming technology sometimes brings in terms of poor quality of experience. I think last but not least here, we had the latency, right? So obviously, it's very relevant for sports, live sports. No one wants to be watching, what was happening a minute ago on broadcast, right? So this is important. I put also a little radar graph, right? So every good analytics solution will capture those information. Obviously, when you do streaming, there's a lot of data available, your CDN logs, your analytics from the player as well. And this is when you can build basically a complete picture of what's happening to a video delivery session. Okay, so we know why quality of experience is important, and we know what good looks like. So we talked about latency, rebuffering, fast start, high quality, avoiding too many changes. Let's look at what can be done. So basic mechanism to deliver video today is using content delivery networks, CDNs. It's basically a collection of caches that are deployed in various interconnection points, right, with the ISPs. Nothing new here, right? This has been around for 20 years. Akamai has been doing it for a long time. And we've seen basically large global CDN scaling to that, right? So Akamai has, I think, about 250,000 servers deployed in about 1,000 locations worldwide. It is not new technology. There are many different players. I put a couple of logos here, the Lumen, Fastly, and others. But what is very interesting with the global CDNs is they have two problems, right? The first one, they're always limited in capacity, right? Whether it's based on the footprint, so where they have servers available, and also limited in the interconnection with the operator's network, right, with the telco network. So I may have a lot of capacity in, Zagreb, for example, but I don't have the interconnection to go to, T-Mobile, for example, here. So that's the first problem. And then the second problem is CDNs, I won't say often, but regularly, they can have a bad day, right? And this is usually in the press. You would see, a large global CDN having a bad day, and then your quality of experience or the quality of experience of your users is being impacted by, what's happening with this global CDN. So how do we mitigate those problems, the lack of capacity and also the, having a bad day issue? This is where the multi-CDN comes in, right? So it is, simple. The idea is to use multiple CDN to avoid the dependency on a single CDN. You introduce basically policies based on a number of criteria. Criteria might be the type of content. You may use different CDN for your live content or your on-demand content. You may introduce policies based on quotas. We know global CDNs, they like commitment, right? You want to sign for a year, 2 years, 3 years, sometimes with the global CDNs. So you can steer traffic to a particular CDN based on your commit with them, how much quota you want to burn with them. The location comes into play as well, right? So knowing where your users are they connected to a mobile network? Are they connected to a fiber network? Is it a network that has a lot of capacity back to the CDN or not? So this comes into play to basically find the best available CDN, right? So the capacity is important. I mentioned that already. What is very relevant today is the idea. Yeah, okay, that's working. It looks a bit different here. The idea of selecting the CDN before was usually done at the beginning of a session, right? So when you connect to the service, the best CDN will be picked based on those criteria. And what we're seeing now, the OTT giants, they're baking this capability inside the player, right? So within a session, you may start with a given CDN, and then over time during that session, they may switch you to another CDN, right? The technology is relatively simple. You connect to multiple CDNs at the same time. You work out which one gives you the best throughput, and then based on this figure, you can decide to get more content from CDN A compared to CDN B. So that's very relevant, and obviously the quality of service, the information coming back from the client helps you to steer traffic to the best CDN. So it's all very important, I think, when it comes to quality. Something we've done, and I think that is very relevant here, is we work with OTT providers, and they recognize the limitation of those global CDNs, right? A lot of them want to build their own infrastructure. I'm thinking of TikTok, for example. Netflix has done it. Netflix has now about 15,000 servers deployed globally. The Open Connect appliances, if you've seen them, those servers are deployed inside the operator's network, right? So they're closer to the end users. They give a better quality of experience than the global CDN. And it's a lot easier for Netflix to deliver their content like this. What is interesting, though, is it took 10 years for Netflix to do that, right? And not everybody has 10 years to build, this kind of CDN. So when we work with some of the OTT players here, sometimes we ask to build something a little bit more custom. This is what we've done here with HBO in Latin America, basically building an appliance that can be deployed inside operators' network to give a better quality of experience, right? So this is in production in Mexico, places like Easy Telecom, Total Play, and this, again, gives a better experience than what you could get with the global CDNs. I'm going to move on here. Just looking at the time before we start wrapping up. I'd like to touch a little bit on the challenges of live OTT streaming. We had some great discussions yesterday with DAZN, for example, and how basically live is more difficult than VOD, right? Because when we stream, the way it works, we download chunks of video, a little bit of video, we store that in a buffer, and then we play from the buffer. That's how we do streaming in the simplest term. And if you look at Netflix, Netflix can build a giant buffer for your session. So you're watching at home, it builds a 5 minutes buffer within your player. Even if your broadband was to come down and come back up, you would still play the movie. You would not have an interruption. It is different with live, right? With live, you can't do this. If you have a buffer in live, that means you're going to be playing something from the past, right? You're going to be late. You're going to be adding latency to your stream. So it is a different challenge, and it means that the network have nowhere to hide, right? The networks have to perform. They have to be pretty much perfect to deliver the experience that are needed. So sometimes, when it comes to building networks, we usually talk about the size of the pipes, if you like, the capacity that is available, the size of the pipes, rather than the water, the volume of traffic that goes through the networks. And I put here, an interesting figure coming from Akamai, basically showing that the volume of traffic, and this is across the industry, the volume of traffic, the water, if you like, that goes through the pipe, grows at about 35% year on year, right? So it's a steady growth. We see that more content, higher resolution. It is happening all the time. But the peaks of the traffic, and this is the very important point, the size of the pipes that you need to deliver the video, this is growing at 80% every year, right? So you need a bigger and bigger pipe all the time. And I think there is a big opportunity here for network operators and content providers to work together, because the current model is not sustainable. We won't be able to grow this pipe 80% like this every year. So this is where the collaboration becomes interesting. We heard about it yesterday in some of the panels. And at Broadpeak, we very much believe that this collaboration will empower the best experience. The content provider will create the best content, and the network operators will deliver the best network to enable those experiences. So I'm going to leave you with this. This is what I tell sometimes some of the customers, you're not Netflix, you may not be spending billions in the technology, or Disney is the same, Disney bought BAMTech a few years ago. You're not Netflix, but we can help, right? We have some of the tools to deliver the best possible experience, whether it's CDN or multicast ABR. It's another technology we launched a few years ago, combining multicast distribution in a network with multi-screen, so the versatility of multi-screen and streaming with the reliability and the quality of multicast. And this is where we really open the game. This is where operators can deliver better experience than the global CDN. So there's a lot to talk about. We have a little booth in the room next door. If you wanted to ask any questions, we're here, and we take those questions on the booth. That's it for me.